Believe it or not, this 3-row crossover SUV is technically a midsize, and it's not just car bloat. It's also the styling of this new GMC Acadia. It's making it look a little bit hefty. We are looking at the 3rd generation of the Acadia. Cliff did a great video on the Denali trim, which is the most luxe one you can get. So check that out if you're interested in a super luxury version. This is the AT4, so it's bringing a little bit of off-road capability to the table, but it still has plenty of premium features too. We're gonna see how they compare. The new Acadia is bigger than the old one. It's 4.2 inches taller, at least. That does vary by trim because the AT4, for example, has an extra inch of ground clearance. It also gets a skid plate, red tow hooks, and blacked out trim elements where the Denali has chrome. Even the Denali is a little bit toned down for this new generation, and I actually like it. I think it looks better with a little bit less bling. But for me, between the color, the stance, and the beefy tires, I think the AT4 is actually the best looking one of the bunch. It gets 18-inch wheels, just like the base elevation trim, but these ones have a special design for the AT4, and of course, we have to have the all-terrain tires. Now, from the side, we can see that this new Acadia is longer than the old one by 10.5 inches. And even if this were not in the ebony twilight color, we would still have black around the wheel arches for the AT4 trim. Every 2025 Acadia has these bright exhaust tips, and the AutoSense power lift gate is standard. We've got 23 cubic feet of cargo space with all of the seats in place, 57.3 with the rear seats folded down, and 97.5 when only the front seats are up. I spent some time with the Denali just a couple weeks ago, and to be honest, I liked but didn't love that interior. It had the fractal stitching that we've got on the steering wheel, also on the quilted and perforated leather seats, and I just thought, nice idea, not the best execution. I actually think these might be the same seats, but in the AT4, they are Core-Tech and cloth, and I actually like this better. I think it looks really nice. The base trim comes with cloth seats, but at least a heated steering wheel, heated front seats, and tri-zone climate control are standard, which feels appropriate for a base price of right around $45,000, right? Now, only the top trim comes with seat memory. For me, I think it would be a real pain not to have it. If you share a vehicle with someone of a very different height like I do, that can be very annoying as you're switching back and forth and having to adjust the seats every time. So that might push me back up into the Denali. In this AT4, we have the luxury package, so we get ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, and a head-up display. That panoramic moonroof is still a separate option, but guess what? It's a separate option even on the top trim. In the second row, I love that we have full access to the moonroof. We can really take advantage of that opening to the sky. We've also got USB-C ports down here and dedicated vents and climate controls, so that's all really nice. The Acadia is pretty spacious. It has more headroom than the Kia Telluride, Toyota Grand Highlander, or Jeep Grand Cherokee L, and more legroom in the first row. In the second row, though, the Telluride has a little bit more legroom, and in the third row, the Grand Highlander has a little bit more. This has 32.1 inches of third row legroom. It does not feel like a lot of space with the second row in this position. A 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder making 328 horsepower and 326 pound-feet of torque is standard across the lineup. So it's not the V6 that the old Acadia had, but it is actually more powerful, and it does get the job done. We've seen the same engine on the Chevy Traverse and the Buick Enclave, and with those vehicles too, we have noted it's loud. A buzzy 4-cylinder just isn't quite what you expect from a luxury vehicle. And I will say, on the Denali, even with the active noise cancellation that's standard on the Acadia lineup, I was a little bit disappointed. But on the AT4, which is more sort of task-oriented anyway, it doesn't really bother me. While we're talking about noise, I also want to mention, all-terrain tires can be kind of loud on pavement, but here, that hasn't really been a problem. Every 25 Acadia gets an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it's interesting, it really holds first gear quite a long time, especially when it's cold, but not only when it's cold. And that's something that, if this were a really great sounding engine, I would actually be thrilled that it's holding those lower gears, but with a rather unattractive engine note, just kind of feels like a little bit of an old school arrangement. maybe a little more of a bug than a feature. Elevation and Denali trims are front-wheel drive by default, but you can upgrade them to all-wheel drive for $2,000 if you want to. AT4, of course, gets the active torque control all-wheel drive system standard. So that specific system is not available on the other two. We have seen it on the Chevy Traverse Z71, and it's basically a more sophisticated all-wheel drive system that's optimized for off-road applications. The AT4 also gets hill descent control, which you cannot get on other trims, even if you do upgrade them to all-wheel drive. It also gets a terrain drive mode, which is basically like a low-speed off-road cruise control, and it gets a performance suspension. That you can add to the other trims if you want to. And I have to say, it is a pretty comfortable ride. Part of that might be the slightly smaller wheels, but it's really quite comfortable. I want to comment on steering too. It's heavier than I expected, and it's heavier than I think I remember on the Denali trim, but I kind of like it. It feels a little bit truckier, a little bit more substantial, and very much appropriate for this vehicle. This 15-inch center infotainment display is standard, so is the 11-inch digital gauge cluster and a 12-speaker Bose premium audio system. That is a real luxury feature, so that's pretty nice for standard equipment. The Acadia also comes standard with a wireless charging pad, Wi-Fi hotspot capability, and I'm thrilled to say wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I know there's been some news about GM potentially discontinuing those things, so very nice that the Acadia still has them. It also gets Google built in, so we have native Google Maps, native Google Assistant. There is no OEM version on board of Nav or of voice command, and frankly, that's fine because Google tends to work better anyway. One critique is that the headlights are managed in the screen right here. It's beeping about it. And high beams are still managed with the stock. I have to do that. So I'm not totally sure why we're splitting up lighting functions. One thing I'll mention about the screen is we can see there are these permanent buttons down here that those are always available, and we have some blank ones, and I thought it would be really cool if you could customize those. It turns out that actually they're just activated when certain features are in use. What I'd really like is if I could go into this menu and maybe say, I want to always be able to select the camera here. We can see now it's activated this button that has a function for the time being. Unfortunately, that is not how it works, but what you can do to customize a little bit is take certain functions and just click and drag them and put them in different spots on the menu. So you always have them at the top if you want them. Super Cruise is available on every trim. Spending $3,490 will get you Super Cruise capability, plus 3 years before you have to subscribe, but you will eventually have to subscribe to maintain that service. The Super Cruise package also comes with a few other features: driver attention assist, digital rear view mirror, and enhanced automatic parking assist. And then, of course, the Acadia has a lot of standard driver assistance features, including adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist with lane departure warning, rear pedestrian alert, side bicyclist alert, and HD surround vision, among many other things. The Acadia also comes standard with GM's Teen Driver technology, which is a pretty cool feature we have covered before in videos. It's tied to a specific key fob, and it does things like send a report card on driving performance, ensure that you can't disable certain safety systems, and it enforces that the front seats will be buckled when they're occupied, because you cannot drive or even turn up the radio without buckling those seatbelts. Our as tested price for today is $59,230. That does include destination, and it also includes things like the luxury package, extra cost color, panoramic moonroof, and our most expensive option, which is Super Cruise. Now, if you need to get 8 people into your Acadia, you're going to have to opt for the base elevation trim. That's the only one that still comes with a bench seat in the second row. Starts at $44,295, but you can jack that price up by adding things like synthetic leather seating, ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, and 20-inch wheels. Competitors include the Kia Telluride, which starts at $37,585, the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, which starts at $40,830 if you want that third row, and the Toyota Grand Highlander, which starts at $45,080. The Jeep and the Kia both get a V6 engine if that's important to you, and the Toyota and Kia both start with synthetic leather seats. The Jeep starts with cloth, just like the Acadia. but the Acadia has the most headroom and cargo space out of this group and more legroom for the driver and front passenger. Then, of course, there are the corporate cousins, the Chevy Traverse and the Buick Enclave. Out of the three, the Acadia is the smallest and the Enclave is the biggest, but the difference is really in the length. Headroom figures are the same. The Acadia is smaller by less than half an inch on second and third row legroom, but it actually gets a tiny bit more cargo space because it has a slightly more space-efficient configuration in the back. Of the three, the Enclave is the most distinctive looking, and it also makes seat memory available at every trim level, which obviously is a real sticking point for me. But the question you want to ask yourself is, what really matters to you? We are here to help you find it. We've got a full library of video reviews on YouTube, written reviews over on our website, and of course, deal ratings and a huge inventory to help you make sure you're getting the best price available. Head over to CarGurus.com when you're ready to do your shopping, but please subscribe to this channel before you go.